Hi there, and welcome back to the Daily Dose. Oh, and looks like we're already having some technical difficulty. But welcome back to the Daily Dose, your daily dose of support, sponsored by Live and Well Communities. I'm so excited that you're here back and you've decided to join us. And also be sure to share this with all of your friends afterwards as well. But we're really here to talk about how do we support one another during this really stressful time. Yesterday we talked about self-care and recognizing that our self-care is really crucial. As Lacrissa mentioned, our health is our wealth. But recognizing that when we're thinking about our health, it's not just our physical health. We also have to take into consideration our mental health, our psychological health, our spiritual and emotional health. So that's why self-care is so crucial. And over these next few episodes, we're going to work to build out our self-care toolkit. And it looks like we're having some more technology issues. Hopefully that's better. But today, as we're working to build out that self-care toolkit, we're going to learn a new skill, and we're going to talk about mindfulness. And so I have with me Michelle, who's a great teacher, and Michelle is going to really help us to understand mindfulness and give us some really great strategies. Now, to tell you a little bit about Michelle, Michelle's an Alive and Well ambassador. She's a local educator. In addition to that, she's a mom of 4, and she also has her own business, helping others to learn and integrate mindfulness. So, Michelle, thank you so very much for joining us and helping us on today's Daily Dose of Support.
No problem. I'm happy to be here.
So, when we think about mindfulness, I know there are a lot of misconceptions. And while we're thinking about misconceptions, apparently I have us upside down.
Let's fix it. Okay.
So we'll find out if this is better.
Okay.
So as we think about mindfulness, I know sometimes I get questions like, is it just meditating? Is it just chanting? So how is it that you describe mindfulness to people?
Well, I think mindfulness is a practice that you have about being intentional with your life. So intentional and purposeful in the moment. So being in the moment, right now, right here, in whatever you're doing. It doesn't have to necessarily be meditating. It doesn't necessarily have to be breathing. It can be a lot of different activities that you can do intentionally and purposefully, just like you were talking about with self-care yesterday. Intentionally and purposefully and in the moment, not thinking about the past, not thinking about the future, but doing what you're doing right here, right now.
Great. And I know there's so much fantastic research out there about mindfulness, how it helps us to better regulate our emotions and behaviors, how it helps to manage depression, anxiety, how it can help even process through difficult emotions like anger and frustration, all things that, are really crucial during this time of uncertainty, during this time of social distancing where we may feel isolated and just living with the daily unknown. Are there other benefits to mindfulness?
Well, the great thing about mindfulness is that it does do all of those things, but it also can improve your physical health as well. There's a lot of connection between your mental health and your physical health through what's called the vagus nerve. And if you want to get some more information about that, we can post some more information about that later. But the vagus nerve is the nerve that runs from your brain down to your gut. And so it has a lot to do with how you feel all around. So and being able to stimulate your vagus nerve through a lot of different ways, like mindfulness, can help your overall health, can help your memory, can actually help improve your IQ over time. So all of those things can make you feel better about yourself and feel better about the relationships that you have.
Now, is mindfulness just a thing we do as adults, or can kids use mindfulness too?
Anyone can use mindfulness. I've taught mindfulness to as young as 2-year-olds. So very, very young kids can learn how to belly breathe and do different practices where they're focused on the moment right here and right now.
Wonderful. So, Michelle, as we're really starting to talk about mindfulness, can you maybe give us an example and kind of guide us through how we might be able to incorporate mindfulness regardless of whether we're a caregiver, whether we're a child, whether we're home alone and isolated by ourselves.
Sure. How about we start with that? People who might be home alone. Because there are a lot of people who are home alone right now or spending more time alone. So I think one of the best things that you can do right here, right now, is to start a gratitude list. Maybe post it on your refrigerator. What are the things that you have right now that you can be grateful for? Gratitude stimulates happy hormones in your brain, which can make you feel good every time you look at that, and especially if you put what you're grateful for and why. Your brain loves specificity. So why you're grateful for that thing and what it is. And then every time you look at that list, it actually releases a little dopamine in your brain because it reminds you that you're grateful for that thing. So keeping a running list right now would be a great thing for anyone who's isolated, would be a great thing for anyone in general. But I think especially if you're feeling disconnected, that can make you feel like, oh wait, I still have an abundance of things in my life that I can be grateful for.
Yeah, I think for people who are home alone and may not have that constant interaction or stimulation, or even those, as we hear about, nursing homes are restricting visitors.
Right.
And so we don't have those supports coming in to interact with us. So thinking about how that could be something great to do regardless of our age.
Right. I think that's a good thing to do all the time. I actually keep a running list in my phone. In a notes section, I keep a running gratitude list. There's also a great app called YAP. YAPP, that you can send yourself little affirmations, and they'll do it sporadically, and I do that for myself, and I love that sound going off to remind me that I'm loved, and my health is my number one priority, and it reminds me of the things that I really care about, and keeps those in the front of my mind. So that's another way. So you could do it on paper on your refrigerator. You could keep a list on your phone. You could keep use an app that helps you remind you of those things. All those things can help build a loop in your brain to feel more joy, and that's what we need right now, is to feel more joy.
Absolutely. As we hear cases of individuals reporting that they're feeling sad, as they're not being as productive as they had hoped, as all this uncertainty is arising. So I think those reminders are so crucial.
Well, and I think also reminding ourselves that this is a temporary thing. This is not forever. We already know that there's another side of this. And so just knowing and reminding and reframing that for yourself, that like, for example, I was talking with my daughter yesterday because they're seniors, I think I was telling you, and their prom is canceled. Well, their prom is canceled, but they're probably going to postpone it. They're probably going to have another one, but they're just not going to have it next month. So it's not all for naught, all the preparations that they made or the thoughts and plans that they made. So reframing it in your mind that it's not now, it can happen later. So just because you can't do all the things you want to do now, make a list of all those things that you want to do that you can't do now, and make that exciting for something you can plan for later.
I think that's great, that reminder, that putting it into that larger context. Now, what about for kids? What can kids do as we think about our younger children who, maybe making a gratitude list isn't something that works for them?
Well, they could make a picture list. That would be just as meaningful to a kid. Like, what are the things that you love about your life? And let them put a heart on a piece of paper and draw all those things inside the heart. Another great thing for kids would be the circle of control activity, talking about the things inside of a circle that we have control over right now. What can we do with our life? What can we do while we're inside? And what can we not worry about? And let's put those outside the circle, and we don't need to worry about those. We know they're there, but we don't need to focus on them every single day. So thinking about routines and structures that you can have in your house every day without making it over stressful too, but also thinking about what can we control, what can we do, and how can we make this fun?
So can you kind of walk us through that circle of control activity, how a caregiver might then facilitate that with their child?
Absolutely. So basically you can just draw a circle on a piece of paper, and inside the circle you can have a discussion about the things you can control in your life. So right now, kids can control how they spend their time inside. They can control what they eat. They can control when they take a nap. They can control who they talk to outside of the home, because we have lots of technology. There's lots of ways to connect. So they can control how much time or how late they're staying up, because I have noticed that some of my own students are staying up too late. So they can control some of these things. And outside the control is they can't help what's at the grocery store. They can't help what's on the news. They can't help that this feels outside of the normal schedule. They can't help that they can't go to school. But they can, inside the circle, they can still learn. They can learn how to cook. They can learn how to do things around the house that we normally wouldn't have time to spend time teaching them. And I think that's a huge benefit. For years, people have been saying there's things that schools don't teach. Okay, well, here's a great opportunity to teach some of those things.
And I love that intentional focus on what we can control.
Absolutely.
Now, for those of you who are joining, please feel free to join in the conversation. Feel free to ask questions of our mindfulness master here, Michelle. And also let us know, what is it that you do for your own mindfulness to share with our larger community during this daily dose of support. Now, Michelle, I know we've heard from a lot of different caregivers who, they're still having to do their own jobs. Mm-hmm. Now they're having to facilitate their children's learning. Mm-hmm. And the stresses of everything going on, that's
overwhelming.
That it can feel so overwhelming. Mm-hmm. What are some strategies you might recommend for the caregiver who is feeling a lot of weight on their shoulders in this moment?
Well, I think first of all, they need to realize that they don't have to do it all. I think that's the biggest thing. I'm a teacher, and I know some of my parents are taking on this huge responsibility of thinking they have to do everything that I did during the school day, and that is not a reality that we expect. So that expectation might be one that you're putting on yourself rather than actually it being the expectation of what needs to actually happen. So I think making sure that kids feel safe and they feel loved and they have some kind of a routine. It doesn't have to look like it normally looks like at school, but some kind of routine that they can fall back on so they feel that safety and structure that all kids need. Then I think it's going to be fine. If they don't do a lot of math right now, that's okay. You can figure that out later. But I think in the first few weeks, we really need to focus on them feeling safe and loved and that it's going to be okay and that there's another side of this. Because I think kids right now, they're all feeling that wow, this is scary and when is this going to be over? But the reality is that it will be over at some point and that we will get back to normal. So we just need to reassure them that we don't know exactly when that's going to happen. And that's okay too. That's outside of our circle of control. But inside of our circle is what can we do right now to make our life good? What can we do to make us happy right here? So for me, making cards for others, doing a lot of drawing, spending time thinking about my goals for later, thinking about the things that I want to do later, thinking about creating a space at home that feels soft and happy for me, like creating, I made a little spot in my bedroom. It's on the floor, it's in the corner. I just put some pillows in some place that I can just cozy up and read a book. And have a quiet space that's just for me right now because everybody's home. And I'm sort of used to having some time with everybody gone, and that was my time. And so now having everybody home all the time, it feels like a lot. I think also thinking about making sure that you're still moving your body, as easy as it is to fall into if you are somebody that's home right now and watching a lot of television, and that's fine. It's good to relax, but it's also good to make sure that you get up and move your body because too much sedentary life can make you feel depressed. And so making sure that you're moving your body in big ways, so mindful movement. You could turn on some music with kids or with yourself and move your body however you want. But with kids, it would be fun to move it like the music, so different kinds of music. And how can you move your body like this music? What does this music make you feel like you need to move your body like? Or thinking about mindful observation. What can you look out the window and talk about all the things that you see and feel whenever you see those things, or how the seasons change in that spot out the window? Or what can you do inside your house to make it feel like a place you want to be? So maybe decluttering might be something that you can do right now to make yourself feel good. Writing a list of people that you want to connect with outside. Make virtual dates with people. That's what I'm going to be doing, is making some Zoom dates with people, because I can't go see my friends, but I want to go see my friends. So we can still have dinner together. I can eat, they can eat, and we can talk virtually, and I think that'll be wonderful. So there's just so many ways to still be intentional and mindful. Breathing is also another one that you can do. So thinking about taking deep breaths, and slow and deep, and then breathing out 2 or 3 times a day, just doing it very intentionally. Maybe doing it while you wash your hands. That's a great time to do some slow, deep, mindful breathing. Also just being really intentional about that hand washing. I used to do it whenever I was really thinking about my dishes. Like, I was trying to be mindful whenever I would do my dishes, because I would think about how the water feels and how the dishes feel and how good it feels whenever those things are done. It feels that sense of accomplishment. And so I also do mindful breathing in the shower. So sometimes taking my time, feeling how the water feels, thinking about how my worries are washing down the drain. So there's a lot of different practices that you can build into your life that make mindfulness just part of your life, and not something that you do, but just who you are.
I really love that suggestion of the mindful dancing, of letting your body move to the music. And I also think that's a great way for families to interact and do it together.
And be silly and feel joy, because that's what we need.
Now, are there other activities that families can do together that promote mindfulness, but also kind of unity as well?
I think playing games together, that's something that's always been a big thing in my family, is playing different kinds of board games, because that is doing one activity at a time, putting everything else away, shutting out the world, and let's play some card games. Let's play some Uno. Let's play some, in fact, I have giant Uno in the back. We have giant Uno. And doing those things so you can have conversations with your kids, or sitting and drawing something with your kid, or cooking something with your child, teaching them something that is special to you. Maybe pull out that favorite recipe that during the holidays you wish you would have had time to teach your kid how to make. Now's a great chance for you to do that. Teach them how to be independent. How do you make a grocery list based on what we have? Or what could we make based on what we have in the house right now? Let's be creative. We can Google some stuff. You know what I mean? You can make this a fun time for kids, and it doesn't have to be completely and totally stressful. It can be a chance for us to reconnect with our people, reconnect with ourselves, and I think this is an opportunity. I really do, to feel those things and to kind of reset ourselves in a different way.
Now, I know you have adolescents in the home, and sometimes coming together may feel uncool for those adolescents, or they may want to distance themselves as they're feeling maybe a whirlwind of emotions themselves. What have you found to work in your house to bring the family together?
Well, I think those games have been really helpful. I think we've picked some old movies that we used to enjoy together when the kids were little. We're going to play some Wii, and we haven't played Wii for the Wii bowling and stuff since the kids were little, because it wasn't cool anymore. But now they're like, wait, we should get out the Wii and play some games. Yesterday, when it was beautiful, I encouraged my 2 kids, because they were feeling kind of wah-wah, why don't you go outside to go to the park? And they spent 2 hours at the park playing. And they're, 17 and 18. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I think just telling them that it's okay to be outside, to remind people that being at home doesn't mean you have to physically be inside the space. It means that we're just trying not to spend a lot of time in all these different buildings and places with people with surfaces. But you can go outside and play. Please go outside and play.
Absolutely. Now, I know you also mentioned breathing, and sometimes we take that for granted. But we know that that's so crucial for helping our body to regulate, especially while we're feeling the stress and that notion of overwhelm. Can you kind of talk us through maybe a breathing exercise?
Sure.
So we can work together to incorporate it?
Absolutely, and we can actually post one that we do in my classroom. I have some students that made a video that we could post later also. That would be really great, yes. So whenever I teach this, and I teach it to kids, so I'll teach it to you like you're a kid, because it's easier, because then anybody can access that. So whenever you're thinking about proactive breathing, because you need to do it proactively, not just when you're feeling bad. So I try to do it 3 times a day with my students, but then I also do it with myself. So I probably do this proactive breathing about 8 or 9 times a day.
Okay.
Science says that 8 minutes of proactive breathing a day can really help regulate and build a loop in your brain that it's kind of your go-to. It becomes something you do automatically instead of it being something you have to think about doing. So, so when I teach this, I tell kids, think about your favorite food and what does that smell like? So think about that. I always tell people my favorite food is my mom's chocolate chip cookies. Whenever I was a kid, she would make chocolate chip cookies, and now my daughter makes them. My mom passed a few years ago, but my daughter has absolutely perfected the recipe, and I think hers are actually better than my mom's. I don't. Sorry, Mom. Anyway, but thinking about what that, if you really think about a smell and a really positive smell, you really can almost smell it if you think about it hard enough. So if you close your eyes and think about that beautiful smell. So chocolate chip cookies today is what we're going to think about. And when you breathe in like you're smelling that beautiful, delicious thing. So you don't go, whenever you breathe in, you walk in your grandma's house and you smell something delicious. You go, you breathe in very gently but very slowly. And then you hold that breath. And then you want to try to breathe out your mouth like you're blowing a bubble wand. And so breathing in slowly in, and then holding it for a couple seconds, and then breathing slowly out, and then making sure that you do that several times. And we do that in my classroom. We take 3 breaths, and on the last breath, we make a big sigh out because it's sometimes nice to get some of that extra energy out. So we can do that now. So let's breathe in, and hold it, and breathe out. In, hold it, breathe out, and we're going to do it one more time. Breathe in, and on this last breath we're going to sigh out. And so making sure that you use your diaphragm whenever you breathe in, you push out your diaphragm and fill your belly full of air, making sure that you make those breaths as big as possible. And science also says that breathing out longer than you take the in breath is actually calming for your body. So a lot of people, whenever they're trying to calm down from doing vigorous activity, you hear them breathe in a lot, like, and you actually need to go, because the breathing out is where there's sensors in your lungs that tell your body you're calm only on the out breath. It doesn't happen on the in breath. That's actually what speeds up your heart rate. Your heart rate goes down with the out breath. So important.
Now it's interesting how just a few deep breaths can just kind of help you feel at ease. So I think that's so important for all of us, regardless of our age, and how breathing is just so, it's one of those life forces that we sometimes take for granted. So
I agree, and I think a lot of us shallow breathe just in general, and we don't get many benefits from that shallow breathing except the oxygen. But if we really want to get the benefits of feeling good with that breath, is taking those deep, slow breaths. And you can teach that to kids. Like I told you earlier, I've taught it to kids as young as 2, and so you can lay them down on the floor and teach them how to belly breathe by putting an animal or something small on their belly, and they can learn how to push it up and down with their breath. And so that's how I've taught little kids, is that I've modeled that. I lay on the floor with them. I put usually a stuffed animal on my belly and see if we can make it go up and down with the waves. And so little kids can learn how to do this very well.
That's such an excellent idea. Now we're getting close to time, but I'm wondering, is there another activity that you might want to model for us, especially for someone who might be early in their journey of integrating mindfulness?
Sure. I think, well, there's a whole bunch, but but I think making sure that you, what do I want to share? I think grounding exercises would be another really good one right now, since we talked about a calming exercise. Thinking about a grounding exercise, and if you're not familiar with the grounding exercise, I want to pull up a good one here. Grounding exercises are for whenever you start feeling anxiety. So you always want to kind of match the mindfulness activity with how you're feeling, because there are some things that are more calming, and then there's things that are more energizing. So if you're feeling down, if you're feeling sad, doing movement activities would be much better for your brain and make you feel better if that's your aim. If you're trying to not feel depressed, then you need to do more movement and those kinds of activities. And then if you're feeling anxiety, doing calming exercises is actually better for you. So grounding exercise, one of the ones that I like the most is where you look around and you find 5 things you can see, and 4 things you can feel, and 3 things you can hear, and 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. So using your senses in that moment. Another really, really great activity is mindful eating. We all have to eat. You have to eat. So taking your time, and if you've never done a mindful eating activity, have you ever done one? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So people usually do it with a raisin. I love to do it with apples, and it's because apples have a lot of but any food is great. So thinking about, first of all, before you eat the food, what does it look like? Observing the food. How does it smell? What is the texture of the food? Are there any sounds associated with that food? So if, like for me, apples have a great crunch, and that's the sound that I think about whenever I'm doing that. But then taking your time and slowly eating that food. And one of the ways you can do that with a plate of food is using your opposite hand. So using a hand that you don't normally use to eat, that will force you to slow down your eating, because you're not good at eating with your opposite hand. So if you want to learn how to mindfully eat, but even if you just do one snack or one meal a day where you slow down and mindfully eat, first of all, it's good for your vagus nerve, because your belly doesn't have time to tell your brain that you're full if you are scarfing down food too quickly. So that's one of the ways that we overeat, is we don't give our body a chance to tell our brain, hey, I'm full, because we've eaten half a bag of chips already. Mm-hmm. A second thing is that it's really, it's good for your mood, because that vagus nerve tells your brain, hey, I'm full and I'm happy and I didn't overeat and I don't have to over digest these things, which can also cause a lot of issues. So thinking about our health is our wealth and our food is our mood. Oh. So thinking about how we're eating, not just what we're eating, because it's important to eat healthy food right now, especially for our immune systems, but how we're eating that food, not just mindlessly eating, but mindfully eating our food, can help us all feel better too.
Yeah, I just think about how often I'm distracted while I'm eating. Mm-hmm. So switching that routine and really taking note of the food in front of me, visualizing it, noticing those flavors.
Mm-hmm. Not eating in front of the television sometimes. Mm-hmm. Maybe turn on some music and eat at the table. Make it fancy now. How about have a fancy dinner? Like put a candle in the middle of the kitchen table and make it fancy. Get out your fancy plates. I mean, right now we don't really have any, but we're doing a lot of paper. But my mom used to have fancy dishes that we'd have at the holidays. Maybe this is the time to be a little fancy.
Even if it's a dinner date for one.
Absolutely. That's even most important, is when it's the dinner date for one. I think you need to really care for yourself whenever you're isolated. And this is a great time to reconnect with you as a person. What do you want out of your life? What do you want moving forward? This is a good chance for that break and say, ooh, I get to change. It's like New Year's again. We all get to make a shift, except it's going to be over a period of time instead of the one big party. So...
Well, Michelle, thank you so very much for joining us. To our viewers who are live with us, or if you're watching this after the fact, our daily dose challenge for today is do something mindfully to integrate that into your self-care toolkit. During this time, we really want to focus on building out all of these different tools and making sure we have a lot of different tools to take great care of ourselves during this period. Sure. Now, tune in tomorrow, because tomorrow what we're going to be looking at is we're going to be exploring music. How is it that we can make music in the home? How is it that we integrate music? Knowing that music is so powerful for our mood. And I think it even connects to the mindfulness that
Totally.
you were talking about today. So thank you for tuning in today. Think about how you're supporting yourself during this time, and be sure to share the daily dose with others in your community, knowing that we could all use a dose of support. Take care.